Welcome to the Doctors Making a Difference podcast, where we help physicians to be empowered with the tools they need to be successful in medicine, in finance, and in life. Join us as we highlight doctors and other professionals around the world who are making a difference. Today's discussion is kind of a special one. I have one of my friends who's dealing with metastatic breast cancer as a guest. Liz Roberts is the founder of the Happy Wanderer travel company, a very positive and uplifting person who's been dealing with a really challenging diagnosis. And I respect Liz and her approach to a really challenging disease. She told me once, go and do the things. If there's something you've been meaning to do, boy, just put it on the calendar and save up for it while you've got two legs to do it, while you have the time and health and energy. That doesn't mean put off your family or things of that nature, but put it on the calendar. Do the things while you can do them, because life presents so many challenges and you don't know what the next chapter holds. I really appreciate Liz Roberts, and I look forward to sharing this podcast with you. I'm really honored today to be able to have as a guest one of my friends. Liz Roberts is a friend. She lives in my same community and has been an example to me and to my family. So I'm so honored that she would take the time to share her experience and her example of dealing with metastatic cancer. It's a rotten diagnosis. It's a club that nobody wants to be a part of. But I just appreciate Liz and her exemplary attitude and what she has taught to me and to others who are in her circle. And again, I'm really pleased that you would do that. So Liz, would you mind introducing yourself in more detail to our audience?
Yes. Hi. So I'm Liz, and I've had cancer now for 4 years. In fact, in this week, it will be 4 years exactly that I started chemotherapy for my first time. And I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then about a year and a half ago, it spread. And so I got another diagnosis of brain cancer. And it spread to my spine. And so something called leptomeningeal disease. So it's still considered breast cancer, but in my brain and spine. But I've slowed down quite a lot since I've had cancer. I've just kind of had to because I'm so tired all the time. But I believe that life is supposed to be fun. I really got that out of the scriptures. And so I don't think we're supposed to mope about, even if we have cancer, even if we have a due date, which is in 2 months for me. I believe in miracles, and with a good attitude, life is still fun.
Liz, you're so brave. And again, I appreciate you explaining that. Again, this podcast goes to a lot of physicians, but a lot of people who listen are other folks who are dealing with cancer, because it's something that I deal with. And so it's meaningful and relevant to hear the experience of someone who has walked that path. But would you just for a minute describe the somewhat unintended way that you found out about breast cancer? Because I think that's unique and maybe kind of starts this journey a little bit.
How I found out that I had breast cancer?
Yeah, about your diagnosis.
Oh, yeah. First of all, I was doing self-exams. So I thought there was something there. I went to my doctor. They did the biopsy. And so we're like, okay. And then I get a text on my app, on my phone, my MyChart, that says, you have cancer, basically. So I found out I had cancer sitting in my house, reading my phone by myself. And I was just like, you hear that word, but you think a lot of things about other people getting cancer. You never think that you're the one that's going to get cancer. So I took a screenshot of that and I sent it to my friend who's a doctor, my friend's husband. And he immediately called me back. And I was like, crap. Because I didn't know all these words. But yeah, that's how I found out I had cancer.
I'm so sorry, Liz. I think it's instructive for the physicians listening. We're all about patients having access to their information and their test results. But I've encountered that sometimes as a doctor. We put out all these results and it's so quick. And unless you have done something really specific to limit the person's ability to see the information, the patient is often able to access the information before I see it. And sometimes that's fine. Many times that's fine. It's their information. But I feel like in your case, it would have been so much better to sit down knee to knee, eye to eye with someone and say, let's go over the details of what this means. Cancer's a big word and it means lots of different things for lots of diseases. And you really didn't have that, other than you did have a friend was married to a physician, so you were able to get a little bit of context. But
Yeah.
what a wild way to find out something so heavy and so overwhelming as cancer.
Yeah. My other option was Google. And I know I didn't want to Google that. I thought, I don't want these words. I don't want to type up these words. So I was grateful I could talk to a doctor. But yeah, I agree with you. There are some results you just can't get like that. I thought it was mean.
Yeah, well, it is kind of mean, and in some ways, it's not the physician's fault. The system is
Right.
set up such that the data just drops in, and it's yours, and it's in your hands. And again, you don't want to restrict information, but how you deliver information is really important. And
Yeah.
sometimes you just need to know someone is going to go on that journey with you and help you, and you're not just cast aside because
Yeah.
you have a difficult diagnosis.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Liz, let's back up for a minute. Again, Liz Roberts, you guys on the podcast don't know Liz. Liz is someone who lives life to the max. She got to be an empty nester, she and her husband. And instead of saying, like, oh, let's just sit around and watch the grass grow and enjoy relaxation, she started a travel company where you can travel the world with Liz. And she took people all over the place and is just like so excited to share. And so you had really gotten that off the ground and going in the middle of all this. And yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't mind, kind of tell about how that business was affected. We have kind of a personal connection on how that intersected with your diagnosis. And I've shared with my listeners that I've had a type of a sarcoma called solitary fibrous tumor. So your diagnosis and my diagnosis kind of jive. Share that story if you would.
Okay. Yeah. My daughter lives in Switzerland. And so my husband's a school employee. I'm like, well, that doesn't really jive, being able to afford trips to Switzerland every other week when we've got grandbabies. And so I had to come up with a career that would get me to Switzerland a lot. And so I just started this company called Happy Wanderer, and I would take up to 10 people at a time, and we'd go to Europe, mostly Switzerland. But my first trip ever was a trip to France, and I got my cancer diagnosis like 2 or 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, and I was supposed to start chemotherapy. And I knew your wife had knowledge of the French language from having served a mission there. And I asked her, like, would you take this tour for me? Like, be my employee? I'm like, I'll pay for everything. You just go and take all these people and do my tour for me. And she is so great, Christy. And she took my tour. I found out when she got home that you had been diagnosed while she was on the tour. You had some tests and stuff, but it all came to light while she was on my tour. So I was home in the comfort of however much comfort your home provides you, which was a lot while I was going through this. And she was out taking my 10 people around France, and you were home alone dealing with that. I'm just so grateful that she was still willing to do that for me, and she had a great time. And so did everybody else with her.
She did love the trip, and it was really neat. But, the point in this that I wanted to make is when somebody gets a diagnosis of cancer or a tumor or something along those lines, it can feel really challenging. And I would say no matter who you are, it has an effect on your life and your loved ones and your people. And so in my case, I knew I had a mass, but I needed to get it biopsied. But by the time the results all came through and it was ready to kind of decide what we were going to do, yeah, she was on a trip to Europe with your group. And so I had this late night for her. We met with the oncologist at the cancer center over the phone, and Christy was very far away, a lot of time zones difference, trying to sneak in there and listen to what was going on. And anyway, it's kind of a crazy story, but I guess the point, and you did the same thing, Liz, you just have to still live your life and still find those moments of joy, because I'll note that even though that was one of your first trips, it was not your last. You went on several trips, even kind of between radiation and cancer and surgery. There's always some information about, oh, Liz is headed on another trip. She's going to go see her kids. So I want to hear a little bit about that chapter. How have you done that despite something that's a real challenging diagnosis?
Yeah, it was a challenging diagnosis, and it was almost more stressful to think about than to live through, because I never got sick. I never threw up my first round of cancer, and I felt pretty good. I still had my energy. I had this looming diagnosis, and I was bald. but I still felt good. And I still felt like I had something to share. So I still went for it. I made sure I had some people in the wings that could take my tours for me if I took a turn. And I did have a hard situation because I also got hit by a car, by a drunk driver when I was walking down the street. And so I had a concussion. So I had to get one of my people, which was my youngest daughter, to go with me on this tour just so I didn't forget stuff. So I didn't forget everything, forget where I was. And, you just do these little backups so you can manage the best you can. And it was great. They've all been great tours.
When you got hit by that car, I know you discovered that there was metastases to the brain. Is that when they found out that, because sometimes they'll do imaging of the brain after a car wreck, or how did you end up finding that you had a brain and spine metastases?
I did get a bump on the head. That's how I got my concussion from that car accident. And it happened to be the exact spot where my brain cancer showed up. I got a tumor right in the back of it was
On your right
the
side.
back right, yeah. But they said it had nothing to do with the drunk driver or whatever. And I just had headaches since the car accident, just headaches. And pretty soon they got really bad, like really bad headaches. And everybody thought I had a migraine. Tell me what to do with the migraine. I'm like, okay, it's going on a week now. I've had this migraine. I can hardly stand being awake. And anyway, I was in Switzerland actually and kept going to the hospital because these headaches were just so bad. I was in the hospital for like 3 or 4 days there. And finally they did a CAT scan and they could see that there was a large tumor there. And so I came home immediately and had brain surgery within the week.
For the doctors listening, you'll appreciate that there's a difference between the healthcare systems. In the US, if you bump your head and you go to the ER, the CAT scan's ordered before the patient even arrives in the ER. It seems like in Switzerland, they're probably a little bit more conservative on use of, large dose radiations, CT. But in your case, it really discovered what was going on with your brain. So in some ways, kind of a blessing to figure that out.
Yeah, they ended up doing an MRI before they released me to fly home. And if I had been flying alone, I don't know what would have happened. They said I had to have a medical escort, but Brian was with me, thank goodness. And so we both flew home. After that, they said it was for sure a tumor. But at that point, we didn't know if it was cancer or not. I mean, we did know because the triple positive cancer that I had in my breast was known to come back. And we were expecting it to come back. And my husband wasn't. But my brain surgeon said that they can't really tell by looking at it. They have to send away a sample to find out for sure if it's cancer. And they don't guess about it because it's too often too wrong. After I woke up from brain surgery, he said, it's definitely cancer. Like he could tell without a doubt. So yeah, I was glad to be at the Huntsman, glad to be in my own country, and I was very well taken care of.
Well, Liz, it's such a crazy story, and I appreciate your willingness to share it. And I guess just to reflect for a minute to those who are listening, I think we can all put ourselves in the shoes of what Liz is saying. Nobody knows what that's like to walk it till you've walked it. But I can tell you, Liz, I mean, just from my own experience, it is so hard to receive that diagnosis, and there's so much uncertainty and so much unknown, and yet you still have to proceed forward with life and take care of your family and your responsibilities and your kids.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of hear, you've had such a positive, bright outlook on that. How have you done that? Like most people get a little bit just withdrawn. They don't want to talk about it. And maybe they're a little bit nervous about it, or maybe ashamed or embarrassed, or, a whole host of emotions.
Yeah.
You have been open, you have been kind, you've been bright, and you've chosen to take the positive route. And I want to hear how that came about.
I actually don't know where I heard it at first, but at first I said the C word. And then I said, no, it's cancer. It's cancer. Hi, Mom. How's my cancer's doing great. Your kids, cancer doesn't seem to be affecting me too much today. Let's go do something. Or, I said the word a lot so that people weren't afraid to say it back to me and they weren't afraid to talk about it. Because I think the more you talk about something, the easier it is, for one thing. And I think that really helped me just to be like, cancer is now part of my life. It's not less of a life. It's not more of a life. It's just an experience that I'm having, this cancer, and other people have it too. And you can have cancer and you can be happy, or you could have cancer and you could just be sad. I have to have cancer, so I might as well be happy and do as many things as I can do with the cancer and enjoy what is still fully available to me, which is my family. You really discover what matters to you and what's important. I was so busy before, my business and my family and visiting my kids and fixing up the house, whatever. You really find out what's important to you when you have to narrow it down because of your energy and everything. And I feel like it's a blessing in some ways, because I really feel like I found out the meaning of life, the purpose of our lives here.
Man, Liz, thank you for sharing. I just reflect for a minute because you and I found diagnoses around the same time.
Yeah.
And I remember in the first phases of that, especially now I'm multiple years into the treatment and kind of in a holding pattern right now. But I remember specifically in those first 6 months, just exactly what you just said, to realize what's really important. And you know what? It's not stuff, it's not things. It was love,
Yeah.
like the people I really cared about and the
Yeah.
relationships I cared about, and spending time with the people that I care about or causes I believe in. And the other thing I found, I'm interested, you probably never had fear of anything in your life, but I became fearless. I'm like, I don't care what people think. I've already been told I have cancer
Yeah.
and I might die. I have no more fear. What else can you take from me?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly you could take my family or something else that
Yeah.
would be really challenging. But in some ways, it gave me a perspective and a fearlessness that I still try to remember today. And I hope it helps to reframe how to see another person, not as a failed person in their mortal experience, but someone who's going through a challenge in life, but they're probably still a decent person. It helped just reframe my perspective. How has it reframed or changed your perspective on dealing with other people and dealing with life?
Oh, it has expanded my heart so much. I can't believe it. I like people. Like, I'm a people person, I guess, but I've never had a problem loving people. But boy, that's expanded. And I love people in all their faults, in all their bad choices and everything. I just think, man, I wish you would do something to make your life happy instead of hard, but I love you. And as different people have had different challenges with their families, or just their own challenges, and I watch them make choices that are hurting them, and I think, man, I just love them. And I think that's how God sees us a little bit. Like, we're going through all these challenges or making mistakes, and he just thinks, man, I love you. I love you and I want you to be happy. I don't know. That's just how I feel about people now.
No, I totally get it, Liz, because you can choose the path of bitterness and frustration and why me, or
Yeah.
you can choose the Liz Roberts route, which is I can choose to see the blessings. I can choose to see the love and maybe just a little bit of that godly perspective of how valuable and how well you are seen by the divine. And I think that's really powerful, and it reshapes your experience. And it's almost like you talk to older people who, in their 80s and 90s, and they've gained that perspective through a lifetime of challenge. And suddenly, Liz, if you get this diagnosis when you're in your 40s or 50s, suddenly you have to really quick fast forward, gain some of that perspective, because you have to kind of deal with your own mortality in a way that you never have had to deal with. And you realize that other people, we're just on this earth temporarily, and how we treat each other and the way that we interact with each other is probably more important than the stuff we have or where we live or pretty much anything else.
Yeah.
Well, so Liz, somebody listening to this has just received this heavy diagnosis of cancer, or they're listening and one of their loved ones has, or maybe it's a physician who's just told somebody the worst news they could tell them.
Yeah.
What would you tell someone in those first few weeks after that kind of diagnosis, as far as perspective and how to handle that?
Yeah. The first thing you need to do is accept it and understand it And I think one thing that was really hard for me was when they told me I had cancer, my first appointment, they just threw all this stuff at me, all the things I would have to do, but also like the help groups or support groups that were available, like all of this stuff. And I just want to say, just take a step back, unless you have to start treatment that day or something. But just take a step back, one step at a time. And if it's you that have the diagnosis, you can keep it to yourself for as long as, you can. But then you want to share with your loved ones so they can not only support you, but pray for you and everything. And I think, just taking it slowly at first, but not being ashamed. Or I think it's such a strange thing that people would feel ashamed because of their diagnosis, like they weren't living a real life now they had to shut it off. But we're on this earth to learn. That's what I believe. And there's no better way than through some life-changing illness to really learn what it's all about and how you want to interact with people and invite people into your life that you maybe hadn't before because you were in a different place now. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's beautiful. And I agree. When that happens, you can keep it to yourself for a little while, but the experience is meant to be shared with friends and loved ones eventually.
Yeah.
And that circle gets wider. And I've been really surprised in some ways that instead of feeling rejected or like, oh, well, let's pass that guy by, he's got the C word, he's got cancer.
Yeah.
It's better just to be like, oh, hey, welcome to mortality. You have a trial too.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of helps you to realize we're all broken in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's helpful you realize we're just all in the stew together. And as you sort of accept it and pull people in, just like you said, with your friends and family, it's not a diagnosis I would want anybody to have to deal with. But there is a positive way to deal with it. And Liz, you've been so exemplary in your approach to it.
Well, thank you. I always tell people, I'm like, I would never wish cancer on anyone. No one would I wish it on. But this experience has been huge for me. And I've grown a lot and I've learned a lot. And just the compassion you have for other people who are going through hard things. And I wouldn't give it up.
It's amazing you would say that. The back half of that question is now, 4 years into this, you see the advancing part of cancer. And not everybody who gets a cancer diagnosis will pass away as a result. There's lots of treatments and there's lots of things where people can live with the cancer for a long, long time, or perhaps it'll be cured or put into remission for decades.
Yeah.
So it depends on the type. But I wanted to gather your perspective on advancing cancer. And you said at the beginning, hey, maybe I have an expiration date. Maybe I don't get to live the same length of time as I would have envisioned 4 years ago. How do you approach that? Because that's a subject that I think is really hard for me. It's hard for everybody to think about, like, if I have to face that chapter, how do I be brave during that chapter? Or how do I navigate those waters with my family or others? I just wanted to hear your perspective on that.
Well, I think as long as you're talking about cancer, like a normal amount, which would be kind of a lot if it's new, like you'd be talking to your family about cancer and things. And then you just kind of, I don't know, maybe you should ask my family. I just kind of threw it out there. Yeah, well, I've got an expiration date, maybe in 1 year, maybe I've got 1 year left. What should we do with that year? And it's been pretty fun, actually. I spent a few months in a wheelchair. Was it a few months or like 1 month? But I couldn't do very much at all. But my husband and I just started taking drives through the beautiful country and, at the right time of day when the sun is beautiful, and just found other ways to fill our days. But if you're talking to your family about your life and what you want to do in the next few months, like, what if this is my last Christmas, for example? Let's all get together. We had some great experiences because it might be my last. We are all hoping and praying, and we believe in miracles. And so we believe that I might last longer than September is the date they gave me. But so we're like, yeah, but if you do live, then this and this and this. To just saying that without tears and, because it's a normal conversation. Hey, if you're still around next year, we should go on this cruise or whatever. And at first it was hard. It was hard to say that. and everybody would cry. But now we don't.
Man, Liz, thank you. I am thinking of just what a cheerful and brave, kind person you are, because that is very hard. And those are some of the heavier parts of life. But I do think that it's really important to retain that perspective that, like you said earlier, just because my time is shortened doesn't mean that time is without value.
Yeah.
And to say, well, if I've got this time, what can we do on the days when I feel great? Let's do that. And how can I spend time with people that I love? And anyway, I admire your bravery during that. But I also think that's an interesting approach to talk to your family and say, like, okay, that's not a taboo subject. Let's talk about it and figure out what we'll do now and what we'll do later if I get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then maybe the second part of that is the legacy you build for your family, your loved ones, anybody that has cancer. If it takes our lives, I don't want to be remembered as like, oh, that bitter, sick guy that stayed in bed all the time and didn't want to talk to anybody because he was mad.
Yeah.
I'd rather them say, this was the hopeful person who dealt with one of life's biggest trials in a way that was still positive and still giving back and trying to leave the world better than he found it. What comments do you have on that?
Oh, I do hope that when I'm remembered, it's not just the sick times. My dad died of cancer when I was 31, and I had 2 little kids, and he didn't want to see them towards the end because he was getting so grumpy. And now I appreciate that. At first I was pretty mad, like, well, they want to see you, they want to say goodbye. And he's like, no, because he was in a lot of pain, not having a good experience. But I'm going to try, as it gets to the end, to try to do the things that are going to make me happy or comfortable or whatever until the end. And I'm not going to just try not to be that cancer person that is just miserable and drags on forever and ever in their misery. If you're still alive, there's reason to be happy. And I don't know, I just can't see it for me. And maybe I'm delusional, but it helps. Every day it helps just to think, either way, you're going to be okay. If I die, I know I have faith I'm going to be okay, and everything is going to be okay for me and for my family. This is God's plan. What can I say?
Liz, that's one thing to have that level of faith and talk about it, but it's another thing to be able to say, I find personal peace even amid one of life's greatest trials, and to say my faith doesn't just stop at a theoretical sense. I'll abide in that even when it's the hardest times. And, this isn't necessarily a religious discussion, but I think most people have some sort of faith construct, and living with that helps you to understand that you're part of something bigger than yourself. And I really appreciate your perspective, and I honor the experience. I wanted to ask you, it's kind of a similar question that I asked earlier. If someone was facing the time when they were told they had an expiration date, what would you tell them to do? If, they're beginning of that and the doctor says, hey, we think you've got X number of months to live, what would you counsel someone to do if they find themselves in that situation?
I would counsel them to share that information with their loved ones, especially their family, and reach out and forgive so that you don't have any negative feelings about anyone in your family or past friends, and then decide together how you want the last days to go. What do we want to do for these months or years that we have left? And I just think sharing, like not keeping it to yourself. Like I know so many people right now who are ill, and I didn't know it. I called them for one reason, and they blew me out of the water with their health story. Like, why haven't you told anyone? Like, we want to help in any way we can, even if that's just sending good vibes or prayers or whatever. So I would say first thing is share when you can, and then make some plans. Have something on your calendar. I remember that from COVID. The calendars went blank. That was so depressing. And you just want something to look forward to. Personally, I always have a trip to Switzerland planned. That just helps me get through the next phase. I don't know, you just have to have something to look forward to. And everyone does. Everyone can have something.
Wow. Liz, thank you. You've shared with us something that's just, I know it's so deeply personal to you, and you've shared your journey. And I know you've been just in our circle of friends, you've been so public and so positive, even though something is so difficult as that. And I know it's a hard discussion to have in some ways, but on the other hand, we're all going to die someday. And it's actually
Yeah.
helpful to kind of talk about it in a way that's practical and say, well, let's live life to the meaning we can achieve, and let's
Yeah.
leave a legacy, and let's live with hope, and let's live with faith, and don't die and don't end life with bitterness and frustration, but instead choose the path of peace, choose the path of hope. And
Yeah.
anyway, I just thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Well, Liz, are there any other tidbits of wisdom that you would share with anybody else, maybe family members or individuals who are dealing with a cancer diagnosis?
You know what? It's not just cancer, it's aging. Like you said, we are all going to die someday. And if you are a person of faith, then you know what that means. And it's not a negative thing. It's just a thing. It's part of the process. And so I don't know how to describe it, but you just carry on and be grateful for what you have. And even though I have cancer, I also have the best husband and the best little girls and now the best grandkids. I'm probably not going to be able to enjoy them for very long, but I will from the other side. I know that. I know it's all positive.
Wow, Liz, thank you. I have gained from your perspective. And I know one of the things I've taken away from this experience, or, still think about, is no matter how it shakes out, you're only given a few decades on this planet,
Yeah.
no matter how good it is.
Yeah.
And really, when a person, even if they have 8 decades on the planet or more, it's still just really a small amount of time. So it's our opportunity and our stewardship to try to leave it a little bit better than we found it, leave a legacy for people that we come across. And like we talked earlier, find forgiveness, let people be human, and give them a chance to change and grow. Don't let people take advantage of you, of course. But
Yeah.
there's real power in kind of gaining that perspective of what really matters. And you have shared that with us and taught us. And so I really want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Pete.
Yeah. Liz, thanks for taking the time to do this. And I will put this out podcast and I'll put your information on there. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and keep in touch, Liz.
Thank you so much, Peter. Okay.
Thanks for tuning into the Doctors Making a Difference podcast. And thank you for what you do to help your patients and your community. Your work truly helps so many people. We produce this content to help you have the tools you need to stay in medicine and to highlight the amazing work being done by physicians around the world. Please note that while I am a physician, and many of the guests on this program are also physicians or other professionals, the discussions on this podcast do not represent my employer or any professional organizations to which I belong. This podcast is for your information and entertainment only, and should not be taken as professional advice. You should seek appropriate professional advice pertaining to your own situation. Please check out more of our content on our website, doctorsmakingadifference.com. Also, please follow, like, or subscribe on your podcast player or YouTube channel, and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps to spread the message. Finally, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you'd like to nominate someone else to be a guest, please visit the website or email admin@doctorsmakingadifference.com. See you next time.